Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Do I have a motion here, Mark, to return to open? I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by R. Herget. Be resolved that the Council Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session of Council at 10:19 a.m. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Thank you. Mark, make note that only those matters that we went into closed session were the only ones discussed. There's no matters arising from that. So that brings us down to the consent agenda. And for everybody out there, Councillor Hutchison is running a little bit late this morning, and we had a few other councillors that were running a little bit late. That's why we're running a little bit late here from snow removal, but glad that everybody so far was able to get here. I have a motion, I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by R. Herget. Be resolved that items A1 to A3 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted as amended, and further that authorization be given for actions to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Did you want to make note, Mark, of the as amended part?
I noted in the summary of consent resolutions that the regular council meeting held on December 17th of 2017 would be approved. It should have stated December 18th.
Thank you. Comments, Rebecca?
Just so that we know, the minutes were amended to reflect that Councillor Thompson and myself were at that meeting as well on December 18th. Thanks.
Yes. Yep. They were done before they came out, but from the initial. Okay. Any other questions, comments on the consent motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. Mike, I'll have you hand out the other ones to the motions. Then I guess we're down to, that should just bring us, there was no tenders. I'm going to go just to one, future committee meetings. There was going to be a meeting this coming Friday. Laura, wasn't listed, but it has been, we'll have to have a discussion for the police committee, building committee actions or thoughts. We had put it in on Friday, but we'll have to get another date for that. Laura?
January 10th is still.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The meeting on Friday, the 12th, thank you.
Yeah, Adam loves that.
Has been postponed. However, there is a meeting for the meeting on the 12th is for all of council. The meeting on the 10th is for the police headquarters building committee, and that meeting is still standing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Laura. All right. That brings us down to communications from Mayor and Council. Are there any council members' communications? Councillor Lawrence. Carol?
Thank you. Just to let you know, the Normanby Recreation Committee had a gala closeout to Canada 150 with a big New Year's gala. There were just over 250 people there that thoroughly enjoyed saying goodbye to 17 and hello to 18. And also New Year's Day from 9 to 1, I guess it was, the Ayton firefighters had their annual New Year's breakfast, which was delicious, I might add. Other years they've served around 300. They thought, when I was leaving, talked to somebody about quarter to 12, I guess, and they thought it would be well over the 300 this year. Okay.
Yes, very well attended. I noted that I was there at 9 o'clock. That's considerably late for my breakfast, but if you were there at 12 for your breakfast, obviously we work on different hours, Carol.
That's the first year. Usually I'm one of the first ones there. But and they were still coming in, I made it, and
Yeah.
lining up at noon.
It was very well attended. And I left there, if I can say, left there and came to the Durham Legion as the levy on New Year's Day, and the attendance was down this year considerably, but certainly weather-related. It was blowing and storming fairly hard in the afternoon, so the attendance was down. And the attendance was down, and a couple of individuals, Margaret Leatham and Monica Griffin, still put on the Christmas Day dinner for individuals that, you know, don't have family or family not close by. Usually it's been anywhere from 75 to 100 people have showed up there for that dinner on Christmas Day. Great volunteer group looks after that. But this year, because of weather-related issues again, on Christmas Day with it storming, they were down below 40. So I don't think it was an indication of lack of people. It was just lack of weather cooperation that caused a bit there. Any other councillors? Rebecca?
So I was just going to say that there were several groups and organizations that worked very hard and very diligently over Christmas time to make all the activities for everybody in West Grey really fun and enjoyable. And thank you to everybody that put in all the extra effort. Again, the firefighters, breakfast, skating as always. Also, today is the beginning of a competition for our library to win some money for our West Grey Library. This is through southgrey.ca, and we're having a reading competition. There are 2 people from West Grey that are reading to hopefully earn some money. $200 is the big cash pot on this. And anyway, you can look for that on the southgrey.ca website, and we are promoting literacy and reading in West Grey. Thanks.
Thank you for that update. To reading resolutions, motions, is that part of the library reading program?
Reading and writing,
Okay. I jest slightly. Okay, any other comments from council members? Very good. I think the season was excellent, and being this the first council meeting from the council to everyone out there that may be watching Adam's production, Happy New Year to all, and may all your dreams and aspirations come to fruition for 2018. From myself and speaking on behalf of council and the municipal staff here at West Grey. With that, I think that's it. If there's no other communications, then we are down to delegations, and I apologize for being slightly behind, but we'll see if we can get caught up. Malcolm Beto, the Vice Chair of the West Grey Library, is here with some concerns on questions from the library budget. The Chair, I don't see Tim here, so Tim's not coming today, or? Oh, it is something that is going around, so if we can keep that away. No, I've heard of a few people that have had that. So the floor is yours, Malcolm, if you want to give us, if you can use the microphone there. It's adjustable, it'll get down to your height. No?
No, okay.
There
He's
you
been
are.
doing that for a long time, but so we're back and forth quite often.
Yes.
Appreciate the opportunity to discuss the budget. As we give you the last time was a proposal for a budget set at 6.5, and we were asked to maybe reconsider that budget and to bring it in at a lower cost. Which we spent a long time working with because it has implications to staffing, implication to services, etc., etc. I'm going to ask him in a minute to go over what a 2% budget would look like, and we're hoping that we can maybe discuss where there's maybe a balance in between, possibly. My concern is, and it's the board's concern, is that with the amount of money that we get, the services we can provide are being cut. And next year, the budget would be, if it was coming in at that 2%, would be a cut on the cuts. So we are looking at how we can manage to work with the strat plan we have and council strat plan to keep the services up to the standard which we know will be expected by our present residents and new incoming residents. So I would hope that we can get together after this particular budget and discuss ways by which we can improve both the services and how we work that with our finances. So I'm going to ask him to give just a quick breakdown on what a 2.01% budget would look like.
Microphone doesn't work quite, mics don't work quite well there. If you could, Kim, please.
Okay, raise it up a little bit. So the 2% or 2.01% that we got came to is a cut in 8 hours from staff hours, which will also reduce 2 building hours. Ayton would go down to 10 hours, and Elmwood would go down to 4 hours. There's also the reduction in our long weekends. We would be closed every Saturday on a long weekend, and we would also be closed during Christmas and New Year's. So that's how we came to that 2%. So most of it is staff hours.
Questions from the council? That's it? Carol, Councilor.
Thank you. It's not a question, it's a concern. And I really have concern in what you chose to cut, that being long weekends, Saturdays, which is when we have tourists in town, we have people at the campground, and in the past, they have been good patrons of the library. I don't know the history since you've moved, but certainly they were when we were on the Hill. Secondly, between Christmas and New Year's, is that not when people have holidays? Is that not when kids are home? To me, this has been done strictly looking at staff as opposed to the good for the patrons. And I think that there's other ways to cut your time. You could look at closing more hours in Durham. People will come when you're open. And I do think there's better choices. And when you're hitting long weekends and Christmas, as I said, when you're really hitting the patrons, certainly that was done to me with the staff in mind. I have to say I'm disappointed to say that's what you would come forward with. And you're coming down 8 and now you're cutting from 10 to, you're cutting the 12. You're supposed to be open 12 hours. What about Newstead? How long is it open?
It's open 12.
Well, I'm sure you could find 2 hours per week from Durham and put them on Eaton to have it open those 2 hours.
We have a problem with the hours. The work is 5 hours at a time, and therefore they have to have a lunch break. So 5 hours and 5 hours, it would mean that we'd have to have somebody else would have to go there to look at those 2 hours.
No, it doesn't. You could close for that half hour as long as you've got it posted. You don't have to have somebody else come. That's just another cost.
It would have to be more than half an hour.
Well, whatever. You could be closed, if you've got your hours posted and people are aware, it's not a problem.
One of the points of bringing forward this particular budget is to show that it is a cut budget. It is cutting into services that members should have. That's why we're saying we don't agree with 2% for our patrons at all. It's somebody is going to suffer. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. Somebody has to suffer on this if we go to 2%. And an individual, each branch has an opinion on what they should have. So, I mean, if we were to go with that, the budget would not be at 2% or even 6.5%.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm. Was there any extra revenue generation and/or other expenses that were considered, or was it just a cut in operational hours?
We looked at revenue generation is never guaranteed because it's typically fines or computer use. So it was based on what 2017 was. There is a little bit of an increase there, but not a lot to be able to get us at a 2%. And then there was some reduction in like mileage and that kind of thing as well. But again, our biggest cut is staff, unfortunately. It's our largest part of the budget.
Is it staff, or is it, is there a better way of saying that it's operational hours?
Operational hours, yeah.
Yeah, it's when the doors are open.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
necessarily staff.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Rebecca?
So I was just going to say, kind of overcap where we've been. The library board has come to us with a 6.1% increase, mostly
6.5,
6.5% increase.
not 6.8.
And that was mainly because of staffing, wages and benefit increase. So then we gave the direction back to the board to bring us something better, somewhere in and around 2%. That's what this looks like. This is an award-winning board this last year. They have patronage up this year. If we look at the statistics about which location to continue operation, it would clearly say Elmwood's numbers are not viable to put resources there. However, council did ask that Elmwood stay open as well. So we asked the library board to put that in their budget to keep it open. This will be our decision, and the board will have to work within it. However, I would like to say that if patronage is up, this is a good service being run, it's been provincially recognized, then this is a service that we should continue to promote. One thing I would really like to bring to everyone's attention is the reason for the large increase to employee wages and benefits is because our staff is going through the grid system to get up to, the goal is always the top of the ladder, right? But that comes at a cost, and this is not something that will be a 1 year. This is something that over the next several years we're going to have to figure out. Potentially, other departments are running at red lines, which means they're at the top of their mark year after year, and they're being held there. But this is a case where the library board sees that there's a large increase in wages, and we need to address it one way or another. I would support the library, though. They are award-winning, their patronage is up, and they need resources. Thank you.
Just to be a little more clear and a little correct, if you allow me, Councillor Herget, I know that a lot of other departments are not redlined at the top of the pay grid. All of them, whether it's police is different, but whether it's public works, fire, even the office staff here, there's a progression of working through, not to get to the highest level, but to get to job rate is the way I think it would be better expressed as being to job rate. And each department goes through that process. Not that the library is any different, but that is a management decision on being able to operate within that and project it going forward. Any other comments on this? Was there anything else from your look at the numbers, Carrie? Seeing as the budget is your purvey?
Yeah, I haven't reviewed their revised budget at all. The other option council could consider is use of development charges. A portion of books, new book purchases can be attributed to growth based on our development charges studies. So that would be an area if council wanted to bring anything forward. In the past, we have used it for the new branch at the new Durham Library branch. And that was the primary target that we had in the years leading up to this, but that would be an option.
I know that development has been pretty steady in West Grey, so are we looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars for the library or something closer to maybe $5,000?
Yeah, there's only a portion of it of the book budget that is eligible, so it would work out to about a $5,000 annual amount that they could, based on their book budget that they've got budgeted for.
So how does that work in your budget, Kim? That if council was to put $5,000, it would, on an annual basis, it seems, I think that's what Carrie is saying, towards book purchases would qualify. That $5,000 would offset your budget considerably.
To go
That wasn't
from,
looked at?
yeah, to go from the 6.5 to the 2%, we cut just under $13,000 out of our budget. So to add 5,000 back into that, it would get us half, just under half.
The way the budget is sitting right now, it's the way you've proposed it. It's not the way council has passed it, but it
Right.
was the proposal that the 6.5 is in what Carrie has today for us to pass. I just want to make that clear. It hasn't been taken out. It's not an absolute, so no fear or scare on that at this point in time. But if we use 5,000 of DC charges, DCs, they would, and left it just the way it is, there'd be a $5,000 surplus. Carrie, or how would we incorporate it? Yes? Clear on that? Council, got any other thoughts towards the library budget and/or proposal? Carol?
Well, I'd like to see them stay within that 2% target that we gave them. They've looked at hours, and they have been able to cut. I would ask the library board, though, to review those hours they've chosen to cut. I'm not saying the 8 hours is fine, but I think you can find better ways to achieve that. And as I keep saying, people will come when it's open. So you may be cutting a service by a few hours, but again, people will come. And I understand you're busy, and as you know, I go to Bruce County all the time, Southampton. I'm sure they're busier than the Durham Library, and like they close at 5 o'clock sometimes, but I go when it's open, as does everybody else, and that would happen here. I do hope the library board will take a look at that. To me, as you said, actually, and pointed it out, you were to point out what cutting meant. So I'm hoping that that isn't carved in stone, the hours you've chosen to close between the long weekends and between Christmas and New Year's. I do hope the board will take another look at that. And keep in mind, it's for the availability and the use of the patrons, and that when are your patrons there? But I would ask you to look at that. But I think we should stay there, Mr. Mayor. As you know, if you go back, we clawed back Elmwood the one year when they closed it, which was unfortunate, but the next year, their increase was based on the last year's budget, which included Elmwood. So, they gained there a bit. And it's not only the library that would like to have more money in there. All of our departments could use more money, but, it's the taxpayer that's paying it. We've asked them all to cut back, so I don't think we can handle these people any differently.
Mr. Bell?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councilor Lawrence's assessment of the hours, but I also agree that I would support the $5,000 from development charges to the library. I believe that obviously with the new growth, they need new materials, and I think that to stay current on the materials, I think it's very important to put that towards that. The hours are the hours. Yeah, I mean, we could sit down and nitpick and look at hours of operation in all our library centers, but bottom line is, I think we got to move this along. I think, yeah, I do give great respect to the directors and the managers who have come in at that 2% level this time. You know, if it's going to be an ongoing thing with development charges, supplying some new materials to the library, if we can work around that item, I would support that. But I think it's important to also show everybody that, hey, we have some responsibilities here as a council to keep those increases under control, and I think we need to do that. So if you need motion or direction, I support the direction. If you need motion, I'll happily make it to the 5,000.
I think that'll be part of the budget going forward, so we're not, when we get down to that point of it, Carrie?
Depending if you want to change your budget bylaw or if you want to pass a motion once you finally decide on where your library budget dollar lands, you can pass a motion to pull from the reserves X amount of dollars, and then this budget, if it's at the higher amount, it would show a surplus unless it was spent on other capital items or whatever might come up during the year.
Yeah. No,
That would be
a
your
surplus.
discretion.
Discretionary.
What you have in your budget is, it would be a surplus in there.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor, clarification. Are we looking at, which budget are we looking at?
It seems that I'm taking it that council would like to see 2%. I thank you and Kim for coming forward today and giving us, you know, from your perspective, what 2% would look like. You're saying, you know, here it is, a couple of hours reduction in Elmwood and Ayton, I believe it was. The other two facilities didn't see anything, and there wasn't any other expenses, whether it's utilities. Snow removal may be up. You know, budgeting is always, at the best, a good guess. So at this point in time, we're not, you know, going to say one way or the other. It's when the bylaw will come forward. As I said, the proposal in there right now is it that? Maybe something could be said that $5,000 from development charges goes in, and that would offset B5,000, and maybe council will leave it the way it is and say, you know, at the end of the year, it would be working with the library over that to find it at that 2% and show us a surplus at the end of the year.
Okay. We appreciate you giving us the time to explain this, and certainly we're open to any suggestions whereby we can improve our services and working within the strat plans, because we do have that, and you have one too, and it's amalgamated them both together, and we need to have more for the incoming council to get their teeth into and look at different ways maybe in which we can achieve what we need. And I understand money is money, and you can only divide it so many different ways. And we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it. Okay. The next one, we have a delegation. We're doing pretty good. We gained 2 minutes there. Dale, you're only 18 minutes late now. Dale Aarons is here from the Elmwood Community Center Board, and give us an update or proposals on the kitchen renovation project that has taken up a fair bit of the board's time over the last year, give or take. Dale.
And a bit of your time as well, I'm sure. But anyhow, thank you for your time, and on behalf of the Elmwood Community Center Board, I'd just like to wish our municipal partners from West Grey all the best in 2018, and we understand that it's a huge task to consider all of the services provided to the entire district of West Grey, and we do appreciate your time and your efforts. I should be fairly brief this morning, but I tend to roll on, so feel free to say, cut it out. But to begin with, I'm just excited about something that's happening at the community center, and I want to make this, make you aware of this. Once again, we're hosting Farmers Week, Grey Bruce Farmers Week at the community center, and it's been a busy week in spite of a flurry of broken snowblowers and stable cleaners and frozen water bowls and frozen water lines and those types of things. The weather has played a role, but once again, Lori and her group from Grey Ag has done just a fantastic job. And this year we're doing something different. We've upgraded our internet capability at the community center by partnering with ATEL. And now through Farmers Week, they are live streaming all of the presentations and speakers and have the capability of broadcasting that almost anywhere in the world. And they also have the capability of bringing speakers hooking up with speakers from Texas or anywhere in the world and bring those speakers to the main floor at Elmwood. So this was sort of a last minute change, but it really is significant in that a lot of community centers have internet. However, you know what happens to that when you get 200 people in a room and everyone's on their cell phone and every other person has a laptop. Your capability goes from great to nothing in a very short time. So we have a really neat thing in that we have a dedicated line where we have, as one person said, the capability of a small town or even a larger town as far as the ability to upload and download data there. So in partnering as well with Russ Ellis, who's a company out of Owen Sound called Center Productions, he can set up in an hour now at Elmwood and live stream without any glitches or details or issues anywhere around the world. So we're quite excited about that. And it opens up opportunities for conferences at both the municipal level, but also at the county level or at the ministry level, provincial level. So we're hoping that you can spread the word that Elmwood has these capabilities, plus a hall capable of having people there. And it just sort of adds to the attractiveness of our facility. So if you could spread the word, I would really appreciate that. I'm excited to be here this morning, and as you're aware, I've been talking to you for probably about 2.5 years about the kitchen at the Elmwood Community Center. And you may be getting tired of me, and that's okay. But I like to talk about, in general terms, how we look at moving ahead with this project. Now, I think everyone should be aware of what we're trying to do. And I won't go into the details about where the pots and pans are going to be or where the dishwasher should be, because I think I've talked about that. And I can talk about it if you want, but if you'd like, I would be able to move on and just say that we've gone through the process where we did some initial planning. We've consulted with a contractor just on an informal basis, just to give us a starting point. We've had more consultation. We've done a lot of thinking, and the initial estimates, the target we've been looking at for the kitchen renovation itself was $80,000. And that also included a new stove as part of that. We've looked at somewhere $20,000 to $30 as well, or $20,000 to $30,000 as well at updating all the appliances in the room or in the kitchen, which would include a dishwasher and dishes and cookware and meat slicer and those types of things, all those sundry items that you need. And we've been working at fundraising towards this, as you know, and right now, probably as there are a group of of individuals from the Elmwood Chamber of Commerce helping out with the catering today in Elmwood. Hopefully everyone can get there. We're probably right at that $80,000 worth of money that has been committed, which covers the construction part of and the renovation part of the project based upon the estimates. And we've also used some of our funding from 2017 to put towards other money that we have to already purchase a dishwasher. So we've got $10,000 in terms of a new dishwasher that's going to be sitting at the hall waiting for the renovation to take place. We are asking for approval in principle from West Grey to take the next step and to work towards drawing up the plans and looking at not so much tenders, but proposals for a build or renovation of the kitchen. And this is what I'm asking you for permission approval in principle for that permission this morning. In December, it might have been November, in late November and early December, a number of members from the Community Center Board met with staff from Brockton and West Grey. And thank you so much for Carrie for coming to the meeting in Hanover that day. But it was a great opportunity to go through the joint agreement that we have in place for the operation of the Elmwood Community Center, because we are a shared facility between Brockton and West Grey. And we have some clarity in terms of how to move ahead with all sorts of purchases and all sorts of projects. So being that we know the direction that we're going to be going, and we're going to be following the Brockton policies in order in terms of tendering or looking for a design build or request for design type proposal, we're looking at moving ahead in that direction. I'll be meeting with Brockton Council in 2 weeks to make the same request of them, and we're going to be working with Brockton staff in order to narrow down exactly what we're looking for in the kitchen. And if you've spent several days in the kitchen, like a number of us have in the past week, slicing roast beef and lamb and all those things, you get a pretty good idea in a hurry how to make it as efficient as possible. So at this time, I'm just asking for approval in principle from West Grey to step ahead and bring this project a little bit further towards completion.
Very good. Thanks, Dale. Comments? Carol?
Well, if I may, Dale, you don't want approval in principle, you want approval, because we are going ahead with this.
Oh, that's right, that's
So,
right.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
it's not approval.
2
in
years ago, I
principle.
was here asking for
Yeah,
approval in
Approval in
principle.
you're right.
principle.
Yeah, you're asking for
I want
approval.
the real approval now.
See, you're
Yeah.
going back to your education days. You're coming to the principal, but no, this is a different principle you're talking about. Thanks, Dale.
Suddenly I have a headache again.
John?
Well, Mr. Mayor, thanks very much, Dale, for the update, and I've had the privilege of being at a couple of meetings that ongoing, and you've done a great job, and have the board at the community center also. Farmers Week, I remember going to Farmers Week 40 years ago. I'm dating myself here today, but that's a fantastic program. Needs to be supported. I'm glad you got the internet done. I mean, that's just tremendous that you're going to be able to hook up worldwide and have speakers and whatever. But it's a beautiful facility, and that cooperation that has happened between West Grey and Brockton in the past, I'm sure will continue. And I would, for one, like to give that approval, and going forward, whatever we have and need to do, but that needs to be spearheaded and move along there. The ladies in the kitchen, they've done the community fundraising, and your board should be commended. And like I say, that's a great facility, and to get that last step put in place whereby those meals are going to be put out in an efficient manner, I think is very important. So I'd be happy to help out on my end with that approval.
Carol, further?
I just want to give credit to Dale and Shirley Young in particular. They've been the driving force behind this kitchen renovation. And Dale, I know, has spent hours and hours and hours and talked to many people. And also to the community and the Chamber of Commerce, because there's been a lot of money raised. And that's what we had asked a couple of years ago when you came. And they have achieved it. And just to be clear, the RFP and everything else will be going through Brockton. But our approval is necessary because we own half of it. And if anything, I don't think it'll increase the cost of operation. It might even help because it's going to be new. And we have purchased, with our capital money this year, we have purchased a dishwasher. And whether the kitchen went ahead or not, that was necessary because the one we have now is very old. You can't even get parts for it anymore. And so just with what's going on there this week, although it's not installed yet, it was necessary to have the dishwasher. But that means it now doesn't have to be purchased. So I think we're just looking at a range at this point, aren't we, and possibly a cooler.
A range, we have 2 coolers already that were purchased, I guess,
Yeah.
through the chamber money, I guess,
Right,
over the
yes.
past several years. So we'd be looking at definitely a range, a vertical freezer,
Right.
I think makes sense because I get very scared when I see some of our caterers reaching down into the big
Leaning
chest
over.
freezer towards the bottom, and
Yeah, it would make
I
sense.
would not want to see someone fall in.
It takes
There's
less-
got to be, yeah, there are lots of ways where things can be improved.
Right, yeah.
And in the long term, there are things that we can continue to work at in terms of cookware and updating meat slicer down the line, but
Well, I just think for council, though, when we did talk in the beginning of a new entrance to the kitchen, a secondary entrance, that has been put on hold because it doesn't make sense in that we'd have to have steps. And so that's not an option at this point. Are you including doing something with the existing entrance in the RFP or not?
I think we'll put that in the RFP and see
Okay.
whether that's something that
As an
we
option.
pay out of the project or perhaps out of
Yeah.
capital money that we
Right.
have.
So put it in as an option.
Yep, I would definitely say that.
And just to explain, well, John and Kevin, you've been there. It's pretty cold at the Politicians' Day, and actually the members from Meaford had to sit with coats and gloves on last year because of the cold coming in that door, in and out as the caterers came. So what we're talking about is just kind of enclosing it to stop the wind and the snow.
If
I
you've
think
been,
about $6,000, isn't that what we looked at?
Yes.
Yeah.
if you've been there a few times, you're smart enough to, you get to the southwest corner instead
That's
of the
why
northeast.
That's why I sat on the other side.
She was trying to sit on the side closer to West Gray and represent their Kevin. so-
Yeah. Very good. 2 quick questions. We could do a motion right now to support the advancement of this project, but I just want to ask Carrie, it's been a while, you have been here a couple of times, Dale, asking for funding, and I'm going to suggest or ask Carrie to confirmation that there is some money in the West Gray budget for this project.
Yeah, council had committed $10,000 towards the project, and it will be funded from our Elmwood reserve, our Elmwood Hydro
Yep.
reserve. There's still some money left in that, so that is where council was getting the funding for it.
So I think all that you're looking for here today is a resolution for the request to start the proposal.
Yes, to move towards
Under- yeah.
the request for
I mean, the
proposals.
$10,000 is in our budget, so
Yeah.
you don't want that check today, do you?
No, not at all. I would
Thank you.
prefer not to go driving around with it within my pocket.
I think we can set that, but the proposal that we have, and I think Mr. Bell had made a mention of supporting it, so that's the motion that, in anticipation, got it drafted up here. So we'll see how we go about it.
What it does is
Give us a second.
it also allows us to look at our calendar and say that this is our target for when we're going to go ahead with the project as well. We've got a super optimistic spring target of May and a fall target as well. So it gives us an opportunity towards filling our books.
Yep, thanks, Dale. So
Thank you very much.
I have a motion here, moved by John A. Bell, seconded by Rob Thompson. Be it resolved that the Council and Municipality of West Gray hereby supports plans for the Elmwood Community Center Board to proceed with request for proposal for the kitchen renovations project.
That's say through the municipality of Brockton? because the board's not doing it themselves, it's going through Brockton.
Mover and seconder fine with that. You know, the plans for the Elmwood Community Center Board proceed through, proceeds with the kitchen renovation project, a request for proposals through the municipality of Brockton. Yeah. Or following the municipality of Brockton's purchasing
I think
procedure.
through the municipality of Brockton, because everything's going to run through there.
Okay. Mover and seconder, you fine with that? Okay, so now it'll read, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports plans for the Elmwood Community Center Board to proceed with requests for proposals through the Municipality of Brockton for the kitchen renovation project. Fine? Okay. All right. Any further questions on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Had you brought some of those desserts that the Malcolm Women's Institute are very much known for, this would have been a lot easier. Well, there's definitely more than what we need at this time of the year after Christmas. Thank you very much, Dale. Okay. Down. Business arising from the previous meeting, none that I'm aware of. We'll go down to staff reports. Director of Finance, and the first one Carrie has. Just got told that. Don't know. Is the accounts. I have a motion moved by Bev Cutting, seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 24, 2017 to the Municipality of West Grey in the amount of $503,926.28. Are there any questions, comments on the accounts? Rob?
May not be fair, Kerry, but on page 2 of Fire West Grey, there's a custom photo framing and group for $1,182.05. Do you have any details on that, or like, is that all of West Grey Fire, or is that just?
Yeah, I think it's all of the fire, like all of our 3 stations. I don't know a lot of the details, but it was for the photographer, and then plus the photos and the framing and that as well. I think it has the trucks, like as a group photo, and then individuals, I think, but
Oh, individual photos for them?
I'm not 100% sure,
Yeah,
but I'll have to check with Phil.
Or I can probably stop in and ask. It seemed a great amount
Yeah.
for,
But yeah, it is the cost of the
Huge amount.
photographer, plus the printing of the photo, like the photos and the
Wow.
frames as well.
so when it says it comes out of each station, the 3 stations, the fund?
That's it, yeah. So Phil's put it in his West Grey Fire, which
Yeah.
is sort of the administrative piece of all 3 stations.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I'll maybe stop in and take a look at this humongous picture.
So if it's an individual, I think from time to time, Phil, if I remember right, has done that, you know, sort of a period picture. This 5 years, here's the volunteer, or the firefighters around it in each station. Yeah, you know, might, yeah. Yeah.
And it was especially framed at 150.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the accounts? Rebecca?
So
So this may be a question, a bit of an overlap between Brent and Carrie. The 500 new blue boxes that were purchased, $3,729, are we doing anything with the new program, or we'll just continue, we're not going to transition, the transition blue boxes, like Waste Diversion Ontario? Like, we bought 500 of these, so we're not going to be changing our program at all?
No,
No.
no, that, we were just down in numbers and we had to replenish. I believe the last time we purchased blue boxes was about 5-6 years ago. We went back to the vendor that supplied us the boxes and he agreed to hold that price that we purchased back 5-6 years ago. So I thought we got good value for the boxes that we purchased. So again, that'll take us well into 5 or so years or more for that purchase.
Okay?
I'm sorry, and we charge out, I believe, $10. So it's not any money that's comes from the levy.
Recoverable.
It's recoverable costs. Yeah.
And with our recycling waste management, we signed a contract, so, you know, the pickup of that recycling will be still continued on. A minimum of another 4 years left, 3 years left on that contract? With another 5 renewable, or is it 10 and 10?
You caught me there. I thought it was 10.
Yeah,
I think there's
could be
9
10.
years left on
Yeah.
it.
I know we're into it for 1 year at least, or 1.5 years, so that is going to facilitate.
And there's more news to come, of course, with the Men in Blue Box program that we're in the process of obtaining that information right now,
Yep.
which
Okay.
I believe there's a webinar today at 1 o'clock.
So I would better get going then, so you can attend it. All right. Any other questions? Welcome, Mr. Hutchison. Hope the exercises were good this morning. There's no other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. That's all for you, Carrie? Oh. I think now, Carrie, the next one is a bit of a... It's coming. There we are. And say, Carrie, you've got a PowerPoint on the budget for us. There we are.
Alrighty, so I'll just
Okay.
go
Floor is
through
yours.
a bit of a budget summary, some highlights with it. The tax levy increase for our local is 2.45%, or $222,000. It's very preliminary at this point, but based on the average residential assessment of $228,000, and a reassessment increase of 2.64%, it would work out to about $5 per year for the average homeowner. Of course, if your assessment is higher, or if your assessment changed differently, then that dollar amount is going to vary. But the total is $222,000 and a 2.45% local increase. We don't have the education or the upper tier at this point. So it represents operating expenditures of $12.6 million and capital of $3.5 million, for a total of $16.2 million. Where we get the funding from, that $16.2 million comes from various grants, user fees, interest, other municipalities, some reserves we're using, we're budgeting for some borrowing, and then the tax levy of $9.4 million there. The user fees do include the water and sewer user fees in there, which does not hit the tax levy on that. and the services we're spending them on: transportation, which will include your roads, bridges, sidewalks, street lighting, police, council, administration. That includes everything that doesn't fall into any other category: planning, economic development, any of those items. Water and sewer, again, does not hit the, they're funded from the water sewer users, not from the tax base. We've got recreation, fire, waste management, and library. It works out to the total of the $16.2 million there. I've just got the percentages on the graph at the side. Some of the capital budget highlights under administration. We're looking at an online software portal. People could view or pay their tax, water, or pet license. So we're looking at moving that forward, doing some audio-visual enhancements for the council chambers here, and of course, planning for a new police headquarters. We're just at the very beginning of that stage of that process. Under emergency, we've got various fire equipment for the 3 stations, as well as transfer to our fire truck reserves, and we're budgeting for 2 new police vehicles as well. Public Works has a capital budget of just over $2 million. Various bridge rehabilitations. The one big project we're looking at is reconstruction of Bruce and Lambton and Durham Street. That is in conjunction with the county project there, but we do have other portions of the project that will be our responsibility, so that'll be partnered with the county. Various sidewalks, and we're also looking at buying a new grader with a rear mount roller on there. Waste management, we're continuing to move forward with the household hazardous waste mobile unit. We are waiting for ministry approval on that, but if we should get our approval, then we will move that forward as well. The recreation capital, we're doing dehumidifiers at the Normanby Arena. Centennial Hall is looking at some more playground equipment, phase 2, if you will. They did some a couple years ago. The arena, painting and repairing of the ceiling, and a new backstop at the Durham Ballpark are some of the significant projects in recreation this year. Library will have various capital upgrades depending on the listing that the board reviews and council approves at any of the locations. And we're also paying back for our internal borrowing that we used on some of the, for the purchase of the Durham Library, the new branch there. And that is it. In a quick summary, highlights.
Very good. Carol?
I just want to point out under the recreation, the Newstead Arena paint and repair of the ceiling, half of that is being funded by the rec committee.
Yep.
Yep.
Donation from their fundraising on an annual basis. Carrie, we collect taxes from the, for the school board and for the county. So when this tax bill goes out, those two are also included, and that individuals from West Grey are paying West Grey, and we disperse those payments. On a combined or blended, what would be the average tax bill increase?
We're probably estimating on a preliminary, without having those final numbers, that it might be about a 1% overall increase. The school boards have historically in the last few years provided a revenue neutral rate, so there's usually some room there. The county is preliminary, looks with their preliminary figures, it should be about a 1% overall tax increase, but we don't have all of those figures yet.
They haven't been totally confirmed yet, but yeah. So the average, when you take a look at the bottom line for a West Grey tax, somewhere in around that 1.5, yeah, of an overall increase. Rob, Councillor Thompson?
Just so I get a handle on it, does that reflect the 2% at the library or the 6.5?
That has 6.5.
So we recommended 2%, so it's not going to make a big deal.
Yeah, if this budget, I think it was, say, 298,000 was their ask. If they come in 5,000 less, 10,000 less, then you'll have a surplus in that budget line item, provided you pass the budget as presented. You could decide whether to put that into future library capital reserve, or if something were to, furnaces break down or something, there might be requirements or pressures to use those dollars. But that would be up to council. But right now, it has that full original 6.5% ask in this draft.
Carol?
Well, personally, Mr. Mayor, I would prefer that the budget reflects the actual library budget, not passing it the way they've given it to us, because you know what happened, I mentioned that. They went back and we approved the increase based on their prior year after they closed Ellenwood. Same thing could happen next year. I think it should reflect the budget as if we're saying 2% or whatever it was, or 1.6 or something they came in. I believe it should be changed to reflect that, what the actual budget is. That would be my feeling.
Carrie?
I don't know that you know, the library board doesn't have that specific number at this point. You've asked them to go back, maybe use DC funding, you know, so I don't know if you have a specific amount. It was never a formal direction at the two. It was a suggestion, but it was more, the direction from council was to try to maintain service in Ellenwood. So this draft that they presented, you've now again asked them to go back and take another look. So I don't know if they have a final number.
I don't understand that we asked them to go back and look. I thought the consensus here was to go with the 2% or whatever. And it's our purview to set that budget to how much money. It's not, we don't sit here and tell them, or they tell us how much they need. They're doing that, but we set it. And I thought the consensus here was to go with the 2%. I would like to see it reflected in the budget. And they heard us.
Rob?
That's my understanding too, and I did take it back to them, and before, when they did initially presented their budget, it was at 6.5%. Then I did tell them at 2%, and then we come back to council, and it was 2%. And I did go back, and they did develop a new budget, and that's where we come up with the cuts to services at the 2%, and then reduction in hours and so on and so forth. But I'm going to try to change a bit of that at the next meeting, but I was under the impression it's 2%, it's a done deal.
And this budget is based on the recommendation from your committee of the whole meeting, which included the full amount. There was no direction given at the committee of the whole meeting, which is what this represents. That's the budget that was recommended to council for approval. So that's what we've presented.
Mr. Mayor, can we not change that? We could have a resolution to here. We're in full council to change, to adjust the budget of the library to the 2%.
That would be a procedure, yes, if we want to do that for the
And it's not still hanging that larger amount like geared to the library. And as I said, next year you got new council, you've got that, you build on that. Like the budget's 2%, let's put it in there. And it's clear.
I would take direction from council. I'm going to go with John and then Rebecca.
Plus, make it clear where the 5,000 is coming from.
Yes.
Along with the 2%. Okay, I would support that.
Okay.
Since that gives them 5,000 more.
Well, I don't know whether it gives them 5,000 more, but it's 5,000 that comes from a different area. I mean, they've asked for about $18,500 more. I think that's the 6.5%, Gary, give or take. So we're saying 13,000 is not coming from the levy, it's coming from development charges. So are you going to add that on or take it off? And if you're going to get down to the 2%, now you need 7,500 from them to find, the library would need to find that within their budget to live within the budget. Right?
That's exactly what we've asked them to do. I mean, as far as the hours, that's not, I gave my thoughts on, but it's not our, that again isn't our
No.
bailiwick, but our two members can discuss that with the board, but we know it includes 8 hours cut, wherever it comes from, so be it, but I just feel very strongly that that's what we said, then let's show it in the budget. Let's not have a surplus showing
We
there or whatever.
can pass the bylaw as amended to that on a recommendation. Rebecca, you had a comment. Sorry.
I just want to say that, basically reminding council, we did, after there was the first presentation of the library board budget, we did send it back to the board to say we would like it to be around the 2%. So the first draft was not with that 2%. It might have been implied, it might have been, always has been, but it was not directly spoken this year. So we, as council, then did go back and say we would like to maintain service in Elmwood. And service in Elmwood comes at a cost. So we will have to say, you know, us as council will say, here's your money, board. And they can, in turn, the library board in turn can say where they will host a library physical location at. So we should just be mindful of that as well.
Carol?
Just want to point out, they did in their presentation today, they are putting 4 hours into Elmwood. So I would hope that we would hold them to that. Because again, we can claw it back.
Well, they could claw it back or not claw it back, but to be fair, the library, we are, I believe it's in the budget, Carrie, the agreement with where the library service is being hosted in Elmwood is a administration, is a West Gray expense, not
There's
a
wages.
library expense.
There's wages.
That's, yeah.
That's in the library budget.
That's what I was saying, the physical.
Yeah, not the location,
spot.
but
Yeah, the
there's a
location,
cost in their
everything.
budget.
And that's, they've put the 4 hours of staff time in there. Okay? Anything else on this?
Need a motion to amend the budget?
No, well,
We're going to put the actual library.
I don't know whether you need a motion now to amend the library or amend at the bylaw. This is just, yeah, when we get to the bylaw, that's where I would say amend the budget.
Some changes in the figures in the bylaw then.
Hmm?
There'll have to be some changes to the figures in the bylaw
Yeah.
for us to pass it as amended.
And we would be, I mean, the 5,000 of development charges in there, and then do you want an absolute number, or is it, 7,500? Just, that gives us 12,500. Getting down to 2% is a little bit less, or a little bit more than that. It's somewhere between 12.5 and 13. But for today's numbers for that library budget of what's being transferred to the library, I would suggest that we use 5,000 of development charges as a revenue for the library and reduce the proposal that's in the budget right at the present moment by 7,500. I mean, we could get down to 76.22 or 74.97, but it's roughly, I think it'll be slightly over that too, because it's somewhere between 12.5 and 13 that needed to be cut to get to the 2%. Rebecca?
Is this development charge grant, let's say, it's a one-time this year, or is this
No.
in perpetuity? This is forever?
The library, there's a certain amount in there on a yearly basis that goes to the library. It can be put into reserve and used as a lump sum for purchase of a building or something, accumulated over years, but that's about the yearly amount from development charges that goes in to proportion to the library. Carol?
Just for clarification, it doesn't go to the library. It stays in reserve of development charges, and
It's-
any expenditure has to be on growth. It's just not an automatic that they get every
No,
year.
but in our development charges, exactly.
Exactly, but-
That portion is to the library.
Yeah.
It's still at the discretion of council.
Yes.
Whether it goes on a yearly basis
Yeah.
or whether it's put into reserve for refurbishing a building or something.
But to go on a yearly basis, it has to be because of growth. I mean, you can't just give it to them every year.
No.
It's got to be based on
certain-
growth.
And I think as Carrie said, yeah, that's what the dollars is, and it has to go, as Carrie said, towards books for expansion, for growth. That's one of the places that it's allowed.
If the budget gets cut, then the percentage eligible from development charges would be cut.
Right.
It's the way that development charges work, it's related directly to the amount of spent on
formula.
books. It's a percentage of the books in that one project item.
Right. Okay. Any other discussions on our budget as presented? The only other question I have, what's in there for expenses, Carrie, on Tylenol or Advil for you going through these numbers so many times?
$1,000.
Oh, that's on our benefit package. It certainly is one of the, it is Carrie's biggest portion of her yearly or annual program, and I thank you very much, Carrie, so I certainly look forward when we get down to the bylaws, passing the budget today as amended. That'll mean Brent can get some tenders out for some of those programs, and the other staff can be set from police through to fire to planning on getting their projects ready to go for the year. Okay? All right. Okay? Anything else, Carrie? No, that's all I do. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Okay. That must mean we're down to Brent then. Correct. Got to get going here. Yep, there we are. Director of Infrastructure, Brent. You're
Yes, Your Worship. Just upon, I want to apologize to council for my very lengthy report. No, actually, with Christmas and holidays and things, I would have been scrambling to put forward a lengthy report, and I know there's another council meeting next Monday, so stay tuned for that report. Regardless, Your Worship, I just bring forth information to council. Received information from OGRA regarding municipal delegation requests. I'm not sure if there's any, if council has anything that they wish to bring forward. I'm unsure at this point right now who from West Grey Council are going to be attending, but again, I'm just bringing this forward as information to see if there's anything to bring forward at OGRA. I know I am bringing forward something at Roma regarding connecting link. With respect to Garifraxa Street, so I'll leave it up to council.
Brent's throwing it out there. Is there any thoughts or requests for OGRA? Carol?
Have we had confirmation of the delegations for Roma?
Yes, we have, Carol.
And are we able to meet on Garifraxa? Have we had that confirmed?
That has been confirmed, I believe. Yes, we did receive confirmation. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I was going to say, if we hadn't, we could apply to see them at Roma, but if we're going to see them, that's okay.
No, I'm looking at I'm pretty sure we did receive information that we were granted on the Monday, I believe. Monday, time hasn't been granted yet, but that's coming.
Yeah. To be announced where the time and the location, but no, I think it was Monday when it come back, but it could, I don't know.
It's just that it's almost a full day Sunday, so I just, yeah.
I was just going to say, generally Sunday's registration. I know there's some activity on
No,
Saturday.
No, but Roma, if you look at the
Yeah.
agenda, it's a full day with workshops and everything on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I don't believe there's any, because it's provincial government, I don't believe they're going to be accepting any
We have met with them on...
delegations on a
yeah.
Sunday?
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
they
met
do.
with them on Sundays,
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
They do to be able to accommodate as many as they can. They've been very good that way. For OGRA, I'd like to just throw one out personally for Ministry of Transportation. There's only one spot that I'm aware of, that there's a 4-lane highway within West Grey. It's right, basically Upper Varney, as we all call it. The town line, Ganel, Gagermont, Bentig, Normanby, at the top of the Varney Hill, there is 4 lanes there. And there is no, I've heard on a number of occasions that it's difficult to know if you're turning left, where that left-hand turn lane is in relationship to the other 3 lanes that are there. With the amount of development and the amount of traffic that uses the town line going mostly east, but there is a bit, a fair number goes west as well, that is one of the few lighted non-lighted intersections that has that amount of lanes there. There's a right-hand, there's going south, there's right, straight through, and left, and obviously coming north as well, too. There's 4 lanes there, and no light. And I've heard as well from a councillor in Southgate that part of the problem, there has been some people heading west, that the intersection isn't lighted, stop sign, that missed the stop sign for whatever reason and blowing right through Highway 6. I don't know whether the light would help that out or just a little bit better attention to your driving habits, but a light to be able to find that entrance and going back to Marshall Heights, which is what, 60% built out now? I know it's over 50 anyway.
What
so-
about directional line or painting of arrows, too?
Well, the painting's there. The painting's on the...
I guess you just
but-
can't see it under the snow.
Yeah, they're painted, but without your light coming down on it, it's difficult to see. So it would be one that I would, to get a hold of MTO and maybe put that request in to see whether we can work with them. When they're doing Garifraxa, they might as well just go down there and put a light up as well, too, in 2019.
I made note of that, Your Worship. I'll put something together in that regard.
That would be a request that I have. Other than that, we're open. I'm open to environment, economic development. Apparently, most of the ministries are going to be available there, so would be an opportunity to put something out to them. But we only have, obviously, until next Monday to make the applications.
Were there any that we applied to for Roma that we've been turned down on? Any we've been turned down on Roma?
I think
I-
Like, other than roads, I mean, is there anything else we...
I don't know.
It was the
I
only
don't
one I
know.
applied
We
to.
haven't asked to talk about anything else.
Not that I'm aware of. Can't remember us putting
Okay.
anything in. Bev?
Were we not going to talk to the MOE about their system of, with the wind turbines, complaint systems? Was that not part
Yeah,
of it?
that was one.
That was one, because we were looking into how many complaints had been and how the written complaint process works and the form letter that always comes back and
How are they
that's-
addressing-
How are they addressing those,
Other than just acknowledging
just
we've got
acknowledging
we've
them
got
with
a
an
letter.
email? Yeah, or how is the MOE actually handling any kind of overshadowing of those complaints? I thought that was one that we were going to do, but I'm not sure. whether it was requested or not.
Can we follow up on that? And we meet here on next Monday, do we not? Yeah. For the second committee of the whole, we could put it through on that, sorry, on council, yeah, put it through on that as well,
Were we
too.
not, I'm not sure it was to meet at Roma. I thought we have invited Chappell, or whatever his name is, at the district manager to come in March here.
Yes, yep, we've made that as well, too.
Yeah, and
I think
I
that's
will
what's been
speak
made.
about that at committee of the whole, but that's a useless process, I'll tell you. He did come to the wind turbine.
Working group?
Yep, he's right by the book, and there's, infrasound has no effect on the health of people, and it's a lost cause. So you might get the same thing from the ministry, but it doesn't hurt to let them know.
No, that there are concerns. Have them registered at minimum. Okay? All right, we'll get that one in. Thank you, Brent. Okay? Anything else? Kathy, you're sitting back there. Who's registered for OGRA? I know that I am.
I just have yourself and Brent and another individual.
Could we have another individual? I don't trust myself in Toronto with Brent. I think we did keep one for one spot.
I believe, Deputy Mayor Belly, that you go through the county, is that correct, or?
I gotta recheck that. Excuse me, I thought I was registered, but yeah, it might be through the county, so I gotta recheck that. I have to do that this Thursday.
Well, and I think there was one for Laura as well, too. That's kind of that was kind of the idea, wasn't it, Kathy?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. One.
So Laura was there.
Okay. All right. So we do have representation. To meet Mr. Del Duca, if he's still minister at that point in time. Yeah, or his parliamentary assistant. Yep, it's okay. All right. Okay. There's nothing else. Thank you, Brent. Clerk. Oh, sorry, Doug?
Yeah, just thought maybe at this time, Brent, is there any update on our Walkway Bridge? I know they're still working on it. The weather's not cooperating, I believe, but anyways, anything that we can share there?
Yes, Councillor Hutchinson, they just came back as of Thursday of last week, I believe. Steve had spent some time there removing the snow off the bridge and around the construction worksite area. They arrived back, they didn't do anything. I think they were just I think they were thinking that they were going to have to do a lot of that work. They
were
didn't
working
have
on
to do that. They were
Saturday.
very thankful. Actually, I apologize. They did start, there was one section, so I believe they've completed another section last week. So there was 7 left to do. I believe there's six out of the 16 left to go. So with the weather, actually, thank God that we are getting into milder weather and hopefully less snow, but I think things might move along a little faster now that we're going to be into better weather, less milder weather. It's going to make all the difference in the world for them working, and snow removal and things like that. That slowed them down immensely. So what we offered them was our staff to assist with so that they could spend more time in construction rather than clearing off the snow away from the site. That was a lot of their downtime. They spent quite a bit of time daily removing snow from the work area, so that brought production time down quite a bit. So I'm hoping over the next 2 weeks with the milder weather that we're going to see big improvement or completion of the bridge fairly soon.
Okay, Carol?
I just wondered, the problem with the piers, has that continued as they continue to cut down, or have we kind of run out of those ones that have?
Well, actually, good news was the last set that they just completed showed no evidence of the decay. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that if that happens, then it's going to expedite things fairly quickly.
Rebecca? Sorry.
Just curious, how much money did they come back with an amended price for the bridge?
Unfortunately, Councillor Hooker, nothing can be finalized until the completion of the work. They do have a shipment of their this epoxy that they required, but of course, if they don't use it, it's just gonna. So again, it depends on the balance of the piers. If everything goes well, the cost of the work, or their estimated cost that I provided council back at the beginning, before Christmas rather, is going to be reduced substantially.
But we don't actually know how
We
much
don't
until the
have the
project's
final
done.
figure until the project's completed, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, just curious, do we have any idea how much time? There's 2 more weeks or so?
Again, it's
Weather
depending
dependent?
on the piers. They estimated 3 weeks to complete the work. I still believe it's going to be about that. He said the work will proceed very expeditiously when the railing and the light posts go on. It's just a matter of days to complete that work. It's the deck itself. Once the deck is done, things move along very, very quickly after that.
And then did we get in touch with the engineer, the consultant that had provided us the report previous?
Yes, I actually did review the report, and it specifically says right in the report that the top 2 feet of the piers, having that knowledge, he understood that the top 2 feet were compromised, that 2 feet of the piers were to be removed. I just reread the report. I know there was direction by council that I reach out to the consultant, but in all fairness, they did make an attempt to ensure. It would have involved a lot more specialized testing and a lot more costs. By removing the top 2 feet, even myself, I was there with the consultant when we looked at it, and we both agreed that the top 2 feet of the piers had to be removed, just based on what was visual and what we originally saw. Can we hold them responsible for it? Again, I go back to them making the acknowledgement in the report that the top 2 feet of the piers must be removed.
And so then our bridge company knew that as well?
The bridge company wasn't on the hook. They were basing it on the report that I provided in the RFP. Had they completed, had it been left up to the bridge manufacturer to determine, he said, they would have found it, but it would have cost us a lot of money for that preliminary investigation of looking at the piers. Again, they just did the deck work. That's what they determined, the structural components above the piers, to determine what was of any salvageable value, and there was nothing. That their testing revealed that there was nothing to be able to be utilized again. Yeah.
So this all comes at our budget time, so where will we find the money
It's coming out of my bridge budget.
for 2018?
Yes. I haven't specifically allocated. I put money, a large balloon amount in there specifically for bridges. I was waiting to get the report back from WSP that completed the 2017 bridge OSIM evaluations, and I did mention to council that we spent a lot of time in Normanby over the past couple of years. I wanted to move into Glenelg, and I'm waiting for those bridge reports to come back, and then I will derive. They'll probably come up with a top 5, and I'll pick hopefully the top 2 or 3 that I can allocate those funds towards repair of those structures.
Okay.
Okay, Doug?
Yeah, so Brent, I think as we all know, we learn from experience. So I guess in the future, since we are looking at maybe using this company in future endeavors in terms of bridge building, if we're looking at that, but maybe we look at their expertise in terms of assessing the bridges and whatnot, rather than going to an alternate source. and let them do their assessment because they're familiar with what they're doing. And then that way we maybe wouldn't run into this issue that we ran into this time. Is that your thinking?
If we have any more wooden bridges, yes. I think this was the only wooden structure that we have in West Grey, but yes.
We're going to go to replace cement or steel bridges. We're probably looking at putting wood on top of cement abutments or something, right? So we need to have somebody who has some expertise in doing that type of thing. Right?
Yes, you're correct. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Brent? Very good. Thank you, Brent. Look forward to that. As we all know, there's 100, give or take, bridges in West Grey at this point in time, so it's a big endeavor to start working on all of them or even one of them at a time. As we did one bridge between Grey and Bruce County, that was 1.7 million is what we ended up with. And we just got it there. Our overall total budget, that would be 10% of the total West Grey budget if we had to replace another bridge of that nature. So it's difficult to try and allocate funds on replacements. So let's see if we can do a better job of, or find different ways of replacing. Maybe a better idea. Okay. Mark, your first one is a letter from a resident.
Yes, so Ann Hagedorn had submitted a letter, which you have a copy of, that was included in the agenda, and then subsequently today I did receive another email from Ms. Hagedorn, which I provided for you. So Ms. Hagedorn has obviously noted council's interested in establishing a trail system for West Grey, and she has offered in her initial letter to offer her services as a trails manager if that was being considered. And then the email today, she provided a proposed schedule of how this trail system would evolve. So certainly we appreciate, certainly appreciate her input. I think perhaps it may be premature. Obviously, council has not even established a trails committee at this point, although there has been discussion of doing that. So perhaps what I would recommend is this issue be brought up at the January Committee of the Whole meeting at the end of the month for discussion purposes, and perhaps if council does want to establish a trails committee, they can do that, and then obviously keep in mind Ms. Hagedorn's interest if it does evolve and there is that position that becomes available, or if they may want to look at perhaps using her services as part of that committee composition or as a resource person.
Okay, Carol?
Well, I give you credit for submitting your ideas and your resume. However, should that position be established, it would have to go out wide. You'd have to advertise it, and we'd have to interview. We can't just take one applicant. So just keeping that in mind, should it ever become a reality, it would have to go out across the municipality for applications.
Okay. I think Mark's probably got the best idea. We're in council here, but for fulsome discussion would be at Committee of the Whole when we start getting
that would be a
around
discussion, though, on establishing a committee.
establishing the committee, or I guess whatever where we head for. Rebecca?
So I'm just curious, would we actually put any money in a budget for parks, in the parks budget, or a trails committee? We know this work will have to be done. We had our insurance agent come and tell us the minimums we need to have. We should have some sort of budget line for trails. That way, if there's maintenance that needs to be done or signage, it could go through Public Works, could go through Parks, but we did limit the budget of Parks. So we should give this some consideration as to how much the budget would be, and then they would be able to stick to that. Even if it's parks, even if it's a new committee, even if it's an individual, there should be some sort of budget, I believe.
How much we put in the budget for trails, Carrie?
Currently, you do not have anything in the budget for trails.
Exactly. Bev?
And that's because the trails that have been established have basically been volunteer, done by volunteers, and the only thing we paid for in the last set of trails was the trucking of the material, but even the material was donated. So we haven't had a real necessity at this point to put a large chunk into trails, and yet we've established 2 new trails in the last couple of years, but it's all been on a volunteer basis.
Rebecca?
Are those trails signed properly and maintained and
Those are not open yet.
No.
They're still.
So let's, as I
Yeah.
said, let's get that discussion at committee of the whole, and we can get into it as, you know, is there signage to them? Yes. Is it 100%, you know, compliant with Trails Ontario? Probably not. But as we know from the legal case that came out of Bruce County, I don't think it really matters. They had everything there. They had what they believed the best signage possible on their park, and they still ended up with $20 million liability, $8 million. It's in the millions, anyways. Yeah. Let's get down to the discussion. So we'll direct it to go to committee of the whole at the end of the month, and we can put a basis around putting that there. There may be some funding from other. Yeah, the best place to go always is economic development. Good idea, Mark. How do you like that, Mr. Chair? You know, we can, but when we establish where we're going with trails, before we need, where we need the idea of where budgeting will be coming from it. I guess we've done very well from other individuals that have individual groups that have trails out there. Conservation Authority has, in West Grey, John, 5,000-6,000 acres, which there's a number of trails, public access there. Grey County has the same amount in West Grey, and you know, our volunteer snowmobile club have maintained trails as well too. How does that work into our trail network? And the ATV clubs, the Dufferin Grey Club and the local West Grey ATV Club are establishing their trails. So, you know, it's not, I think we've got to get an idea around all of trails, not just some hiking or walking trails. The Newstead one that Butch Hilgendorf has established into the park, you know, we've made some investment into that, and certainly the one at the south end, in and around and connecting to the conservation trails. But I think we need to spend a lot more time on before we start haphazardly throwing some funding at some of these trails, how they are established, and really who do they belong to more than who's going to look after them. So.
Sounds like a full-time job.
Possibly could be, but maybe there's staff that can look after it or look into it as well too. But if we're going to be looking at that, I don't think it'll be in 2018. It'll be looking to put it together for future at this point in time. Okay. Federal government legalization of cannabis, Mark.
Yes, so there's certainly a lot of issues that need to be addressed regarding the legalization of cannabis, certainly from an enforcement perspective, from even an employee perspective in terms of workplace accommodation and how that evolves. But in terms of the item at hand, in particular, the Too Fast organization is requesting council to consider passing a resolution similar to the town of Richmond Hills council's resolution, which declared the town as a not willing host for legal cannabis outlets. As you know, various outlets throughout the province are being considered and approved for potential outlets of the sale of cannabis. So Richmond Hill itself has indicated they're not willing to be. I'm not sure if that actually is the death knell for that potential, but it's just like wind turbines, that you can note that, but it doesn't necessarily bar the province from permitting it. But I'll leave that with council direction.
Any thoughts? Receive this for information. Bev?
I was under the understanding it was going to be, sorry,
You
I
go push
thought
the
I
button.
hit it.
No.
That it was going to be sold through the LCBO. Is that now what was just, pardon?
There's some LCBO, there seems to be direction or information. That's what I've heard as well too, but at this point, they're not, as far as I know. You know. No, there's no LCBOs selling it at this
Oh,
time.
no, not it now.
But going forward, yes, and would it be all, or that I don't know.
But that's the route that the province
First proposal out
of
there, yeah.
Ontario is proposing that it be sold not in the like dispensary things like they have in Toronto, where you can go in right now and buy it, but certainly through the LCBO, which is considered illegal.
Yep, and would be able to, because there was going to be age restrictions on purchasing.
Right.
And of course, they have from their products that go through the LCBO now, they have that, so seems like it might, you know. Carol?
Well, I was reading somewhere that it's going to be, you know, those vapes that they smoke, that it's going to be available for that. So wouldn't be through LCBO. There's all kinds of those stores, one in Hanover, actually. And that, like, I would hate to see that, quite frankly. I'd rather, if it's gotta be, I'd rather see it through LCBO, there'd be some kind of control on it. I think it's a big mistake to start with, but.
I think just receiving this information at this point in time. Doug?
Well, I was just going to say, I think we don't have all the facts, but I think I read somewhere that they're establishing certain cities that they're putting these into, and they will be an LCBO type store, but not necessarily the LCBO that we have. So we don't know how that's going to look. I don't think they're planning on sticking in every LCBO across the province. It's just they've designated certain cities, and I imagine it'll be bigger centers to start with, but we're going to have to wait and see for now. And so I wouldn't say we can do a whole lot other than receive for information and wait for more to come towards us.
Is this one that we asked for delegation at OGRA to, I don't even know which ministry, whether it's under Sousa or Minister of Finance, or whether it's Correctional Safety and Community Services. Yeah, that we take, and I've got a funny suspicion that there will probably be a couple of information sessions at the conferences going forward from the provinces to how they feel they are going to move this along. So having a delegation is probably not in the line. Receive this for information and collect more information, because as right now there's more speculation than there is facts here.
I think it's something to keep in mind for future, though, Mr. Mayor. It can always be brought back, where we can develop our own resolution around it if, you know, when we do know more.
Yes. Okay. All right. Anything else, Mark? We just say that that's for information. Give direction for that. All right. That should bring us down then, if there's nothing else. Then we're going down to bylaws. We have 3 bylaws today. And can't have discussion until we introduce it, so, okay. Yeah, go ahead. For the first bylaw, I think Mark wants to, following council's discussion earlier, is going to add a couple of sentences to the motion that was prepared. Bev?
I have a question on that bylaw, can I ask?
Well, not until it's introduced. Officially, no. So, well, Mark's trying to get the resolution. Just leave it there. Thanks. Send that over there then. Okay, I have the first bylaw, bylaw number 1, 2018. It's a motion moved by Carol Lawrence, seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that bylaw number 1, 2018, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of revenue and expenditures for the year of 2018, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Further, to reflect a net 2% increase in the West Grey Library being, the West Grey Library levy after utilizing $5,000 from the West Grey Development Charges revenue. Revenue reserve, I think, yeah. So the Development Charges reserve. Okay. Any further questions or comments on this? Bev, Councillor Cutting.
Yes, number 7, it says, if you read it, it's incorrect. It says the actual 2018 police revenues and expenditures be segregated to determine the year-end library surface deficit. That needs to be changed to police surplus deficit. Unless that means that the police get the library deficit, in which case, leave it alone.
Police doesn't want the yeah. Thank you for picking that one up, Bev. Anything else? Doug, Councillor Hutchison?
Yeah, I have a few questions, and maybe this is just my misunderstanding or not understanding this, this little report that you have, Carrie. So under council, which is the fourth one down under operating revenues, I don't quite understand. In 2017, we budgeted $6,400. This year, we budgeted $40,900. Can you explain to me how that works?
So this is in the, we have elections, so we're pulling from the election reserve about $35,000 maybe from the election reserve.
Okay.
For, because this year.
For 2018.
So it's council expenses, basically, is what
Yeah.
that's saying? Okay, all
Yeah.
right, okay, I get that. I wondered about that. Then under roads, which is about halfway down, we had budgeted $157,000 in 2017, and now we're budgeting this year $77,000. Can you explain that to me? Well, no, if it's wrong, then we should question it, shouldn't we?
That was, we were pulling from the reserve for the bridge needs study, $50,000 or $70,000 in 2017, but we're not budgeting to pull that on the operations for 2018.
Okay, okay. Question with building property standards, septic under operating expenditures. So it went from 187,000 budget to 279 budget this year. So what would be the difference there? That's expenditures.
Part of it, our property standards contract, we're budgeting that it's going to increase, so that's in there. We have transfer to reserve of any surplus from the building department. So if we've budgeted 200,000 of revenue, 175,000 of expense, we're budgeting 25,000 to net that, because all surplus remains in the building
Department.
Okay.
Surplus stays with the building department, but our contract for property standards has gone up, or we are anticipating that it will be going up once the
Yeah,
contract
we
is signed.
entered into the contract.
Okay. All right, and then the last one was just under capital revenues, waste management, 241,000 budget last year, and then 41,000. Does that have to do with the scales? Yeah, okay, all right.
In 2017, we did the scales, and we were budgeting for the hazardous waste.
That wasn't bad.
So that was a 2017 project. So 2018, the hazardous waste is continued to move forward. We're waiting on Emily approval, basically.
Becca?
Yes, I was just curious there on the parks budget, it's $96,650 for 2018. I thought we had limited that to $52,500.
We limited the Parks Committee portion of the budget to 52.5. There is items outside of that, insurance, porta potty rentals, grass cutting, all that kind of stuff that's outside of the Parks Committee budget. So it's
A lot of it is grass cutting.
grass cutting,
From
tennis
the
court
junior
expenses,
farmers, yeah.
Soccer pitch expenses, those are all with Parks.
Okay.
In here under that title, but it's not the actual Parks Committee.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this budget bylaw? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Not going to say it. Bylaw number 2 is a bylaw for borrowing to meet expenditures. I have a motion moved by John A. Bell, seconded by Doug Hutchison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of money to meet current expenditures of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this motion? I can say that at the present time, I don't think we have anything borrowed under this. This is more authorizing our line of credit in case of an emergency for the year. Rebecca?
Okay, just being a novice here, how does this work when we have money set aside in reserves? Is that money in our bank account in a reserve? We could call on that at any time? And this
Yes.
is just waiting for the taxes to come in?
Yeah, basically it's the timing of when our revenues are coming in, taxes, and if we have a big project that we're spending, if it's $2 million on the highway project, just the timing of, we know we're gonna borrow for some of that, but we're having to spend the dollars until we get the final cost on it. We don't firm up that borrowing until that comes in. So it's sort of a combination of both.
So any money that we have in reserves that we could call on at any time?
It makes up part of our operating. We have it in different bank accounts, some are in different investments, but this is just the cash flow, basically, just timing of revenues coming in and final project funding being secured.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And number 3 is the confirming bylaw. I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence, seconded by R. Herget. Be it resolved that bylaw number 3, 2018, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the January 8th, 2018 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Very good. Okay, that's it for bylaws. New business? I don't think we have any. So that should mean that we have no notice of motions or addendums. Closed session. I don't believe we have any, Mark. Question period. At this point in time, we always open it up for any questions, if there was anything on the agenda from today's meeting to question. If you could please rise and give your name, Dick, to Mr. O'Brien. Go ahead, Dick.
Mayor, members of council, it's been a lot of years since I've gone through municipal budget in depth, and must say I don't miss it at all. But going through it in a cursory manner gave me one question, and it actually specifically brought up here today during this meeting. I was flabbergasted to see the Parks Committee, Parks budget up over budget so much as they were. My question is, have you put anything in place to ensure closer control of that budget to ensure that doesn't happen again?
I guess I will answer that, and the word in a very simple form is yes. The overages that were there were things that come up throughout the year that were approved by council and put into that. So we knew that the overages on a couple of those items were there. There was a couple of surprises, but that had come throughout the year. But those things will be monitored more closely, and the things that fall under the park, that have fallen under the park or put there, will not happen. Parks is going to be looking after specific things within this box, and only within that going forward into the next year.
So any receipts turned in will be reviewed specifically and careful.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Dick. Any other questions from any other members of the audience today? Seeing none? That's about the only thing that we've done on time, so thank you for the public for that part. Municipal Act notices, Mark? None that are there. Then that brings us down to motion number 20. And does somebody still have that in there? Thank you. Rebecca moves that we adjourn. I'll accept that as adjournment of our council meeting here this morning. And we will meet at 1 o'clock for Committee of Adjustment and Planning as well today.